Hi, this video is about internet shills. In the last few years I've been using the internet quite regularly to inform people and basically to counteract the lies and straw man techniques which are being used to manipulate people, to manipulate human consciousness. Now, before we go into this, I would just like to explain what is going on as far as a basic overview, so people understand that there is a war on for your mind, and especially in the West, because what the people that want to control us and impose an unrepayable debt on us all, make us all slaves forever basically, they do have to battle against our natural intelligence and our natural humanity, which does for most people among the general public include compassion, respect, a sense of lawfulness and decency, and so what the shills, the controlled opposition, and you'll have shills and counter shills, you know, and then ordinary people are just stuck in the middle of it. But the whole idea is to persuade people that something is popular. And once you persuade people that something is popular, you get a herd mentality. And they also will attack people ordinary people who speak out or put forward, you know, very realistic, you know, counter-intelligence to the argument that's being promoted. And they will be attacked, and some people find it very, very difficult facing that. So they would rather, once they witness one person being persecuted by what are in truth an army of trolls, often just one person running multiple accounts. And a group of us that have been dealing with Hampstead have come across this, where people have tried to well, we've witnessed a group of so-called online accounts, YouTube accounts, basically attacking anybody that's spoken out on behalf of justice for children reporting crimes of sexual abuse and murder. We are all mad, according to this army of trolls who have even their own website, and they are very, very nasty. You know, they're very, very nasty people. They will call you a cunt. They will write absolute blatant lies about you, and apparently the police can't do anything about it. Okay, but the moment these people feel under threat from people like us, then, you know, supporters of children's rights are being prosecuted. And alright, yeah, the prosecution ends up getting thrown out of court, but nonetheless, it takes up a lot of time and energy and stress and worry to go through a Crown Court prosecution, and to have your house broken into by police at the middle of the night and all your computers confiscated. And when you know that those same police from the same police station could not even look at a lawful child abuser, murderer's suspect's mobile phone. They couldn't even look at his computer when two children, his own children, have stated to police that he's got pictures of him doing sex to them when they were a baby on his computer. They could not look at it. they could not seize that man's computer, not even with fully satisfied arrest criteria. But people who then subsequently get very concerned about this and start asking questions, they're being prosecuted for witness intimidation, you know. And obviously that got thrown out of court because at the end of the day the police had said there was no crime, so therefore there were no witnesses, were they? So how could they be intimidated? But there is an army of them, you know, that just will troll persistently people that are speaking out. Now, I have never said that any of the people involved, the alleged suspects in the Hampstead case, are actually guilty. What I've said is I lawfully suspect them, and I would like my lawful suspicion to be proven either way, so that I can relax in the knowledge that yes, it was all a falsehood, the whole story, therefore we've got nothing to worry about. Children are safe then. There aren't multiple paedo-sadists working in every London authority. But without the proof of innocence, as one would expect to be provided by an investigation that is the result, that, you know, an investigation that begins on the premise of fully satisfied arrest criteria. But when fully satisfied arrest criteria is ignored and you get very shoddy partial retractions that contradict each other, and as the IPCC have now confirmed, are obviously led by the interviewing officer, then that's a real cause for alarm. Because what does that mean then? What, so London authorities do employ paedo-sadists? So multiple children, countless children are at risk? And so then we should just ignore that. As human beings, we should ignore it. And so this is what the shill is designed to, exactly to attack, is our humanity, okay, our human intuition, our natural intelligence, our natural allegiances to universal law, common law, as people commonly understand it. And we know that our common law has been replaced by corporate law, which isn't a law, it is a crime. It's just, basically, it's just freedom for criminals to commit crimes. Crimes that a lot of, most humans would not commit. You know, if you said to most humans, oh look, shall we go and chop the rainforest down and we'll make, you know, £1 billion, most people would say, no, actually, we need the rainforest. What about all the creatures who live in it? Okay, because that's the way we think. We're created by nature to care for nature. Now, I've just watched this from David Pakman, and I do really like David Pakman. I think he, you know, he is a really decent guy, and I would advise people to follow him. You know, there are a few real people involved in the so-called truth movement, providing real information to people, and David Pakman is one that I trust. Okay, I could be wrong, you know, but I do trust him. It's like Ken O'Keefe. I do trust Ken O'Keefe. Okay, and I did make a video exposing the shills that have been attacking. I do now believe they're shills, or what you call controlled opposition, that are, as I point out in that video, established specifically in order to promote, in order to gain popularity and to promote certain things, and also to ignore certain things, or to talk about, discuss things that the mainstream media isn't discussing, but at the same time they don't do anything. They don't suggest what people can do. They just, you know, a story like Hampstead, for example, is it's a scandal. The mainstream media have basically lied about it and basically suggesting that no, you know, when children report a crime to police and it's confirmed by medical evidence, arrest criteria is fully satisfied. No, we don't need to investigate it because the sort of story's too blooming absolutely ridiculous. Of course, countless police and social workers and lawyers and business people aren't all engaged in trafficking and abusing children in gangs and groups. Of course they're not abusing their powers as social workers to procure babies from poor families and then bring that baby to the cult in order to be killed and eaten. Of course they're not doing those things. But then we've got the UN report for Britain that says they are. And that hundreds of children and babies are being so-called ritually sacrificed, murdered in Britain every year. So this is where you get into the realms of lawful suspicion then. And any suspicion that suggests children are at risk, that supports the probability that children are at risk, is lawful suspicion. And when you've got two child witnesses that come forward and say blah blah blah, and then medical evidence confirms that, and then the authorities don't do anything about it but cover it up, remove the children from the mother. Now, and then a year later the mother's being accused of coaching her children, but at the time no prosecutions were actually delivered against the mother or her partner by police, even though according to the retraction interviews it is intimated and actually stated the children are coerced into stating that, oh, it was Papa Hemp made them say those things. So it's a very, very serious situation to find that your capital city, you now have valid lawful suspicions to suggest that your capital city is being controlled by the kind of people who traffic and murder babies and organise what the UN term as child sex tourism. And the children do state that Wednesdays was sex day and they were taken to various places and sexually abused by hundreds of people, the little boy says, and that the people that abused them were paying £50 each, and that people were taking photographs and videos of the abuse as well. So then we get into the buying and selling of child pornography, which is a huge market. And so I've included this here now because, you know, there was a story about Noah Believable, baffled by basic questions, and people are saying, well, of course, you know, the story isn't true because you wouldn't possibly be able to keep all those animals on a boat, and, you know, only 2 of each animal, that wasn't really going to populate all the creatures on Earth. You know, the story's completely ridiculous. Okay, now, this is a classic example of what the shill does. Okay, of how the shill arguments will actually prevent people from focusing on the reality, the truth within the historical stories that have been passed down through time. So, you know, I've put a comment here. I said what the Noah story is really telling us is that we are here to use our intelligence, be connected to our natural environment, and act on our intuitive and informed awareness in order to protect not just ourselves but the lives of other creatures and even plants. The story of Noah explains our prime purpose: to serve life. Nurture, protect, care. The gardeners. Of course, the Noah story is embellished over time, and yet it is an ongoing story throughout our human history. Regularly, people save animals, and not just themselves, in event of natural disasters. In this sense, God is simply our natural intelligence. We are forewarned. Those who subsequently act on the knowledge have time to prepare and are more likely to survive. So, and this is exactly what the shills and the counter shills and the controlled opposition and their media gurus who are put on a podium, okay, that is exactly what they're there for. They are there to create confusion, to prevent us from acting on our on actual knowledge, our natural intuition, our natural compassion, because anybody who's watched my videos knows that as far as intelligence goes, intelligence is measured according to our levels of compassion. Okay, so the more compassionate we are, the more intelligent we are as a human being. Okay, and people who have less compassion are less intelligent because they're not prepared to take everything into account. They mostly only take their own self into account. They don't take into account others around them who are vulnerable. And so, you know, people, even though they might feel for a certain issue, might be concerned, but they will stay out of that issue because they do not want to put themselves at risk, even though they know that other people are then left at even greater risk, even children. And as far as I understand, most creatures on earth will actually sacrifice their own lives in order to protect the young. It is a prime feature of life that the adult generation will fight to the death to protect the next generation, the upcoming generation. And it is an inbuilt natural feature that people instinctively protect children. And so it's like I've said, I've been trying to promote child protection directives, and I've hit a brick wall, you know. There's going to be some sort of CSA conference in Britain this year, and there's a lot of people going there who you know, run quite popular internet sites and news program sites that are going to be discussing CSA, you know, and inviting people to go along with that. Apparently they're going to shame the government, but as I've said, will they promote child protection directives? Probably not. And that's the whole point, where people get talking on an issue, but nobody is prepared to focus on the solution because everybody's caught up in discussing the issue and exposing who's actually responsible for covering it up or committing the abuse or the victims, you know. But then nobody is really interested in actually presenting and proposing a solution, like the UN endorsed child protection directives. And so this is exactly what the shills and this online opposition are exactly created to expose. So I've just gone here and I've been going through. Now here, this is typical, and this is exactly what happened with the Trump campaign as well, and I noticed it with Brexit, that what happens is they come out and say, well, if Britain votes to remain in the EU, it's going to be rigged. Okay, and you know, this was before this was posted before the upcoming EU referendum in Britain, because look, you know, 2013, prepare yourself for the pro-EU internet shills. Okay, but actually when we look, as I go through these links, you will see that actually this guy was funded by somebody, an organisation that did exactly what is being said here in order to promote Brexit. And I did notice that the Brexit supporters were particularly nasty and particularly vile towards people who commented against their racist remarks and things, people who were offended by that. They were very vile and nasty to them, and also very vociferous and regularly posting about how the election was going to be rigged. You see, how the referendum was going to be rigged. And I noticed that the Trump campaigners did exactly the same thing, said it was going to be rigged. But actually, those accusing of rigging are actually the people that were engaged in that rigging in all kinds of ways. And the internet shill is a tool, you know, the internet is a tool, and they can make something look very popular, and they all support each other. So, you know, somebody puts up a few posts first about, you know, some recipes or a selfie, and they'll have like 150 likes, and when people see 150 likes, they would think, oh, this person's popular, and then they feel like connected if that person then wants to be their friend. But often that person will be their friend in order to see if there's any way that they can attack this person if they are posed a threat, if they can expose something about them, if they can dig up some dirt on them. You know, for me, that will have proven very difficult for the shills, because there is no dirt on me apart from what this world has thrown on me, you know, that I've survived. Okay, so what can they say about me? So they have to resort to absolute outright lies, which they will do if that is what it's going to take to discredit somebody and to put doubt in people's minds. And that's all they need to do, is cast doubt. That's it. And we know that doubt is a prime feature of the law, because in order to be prosecuted, you know, in order to be found guilty or innocent, a jury is traditionally will arrive at a judgment on a case as being beyond reasonable doubt. If there's reasonable doubt, then the person won't be convicted. But what the shills do is they use the opposite of that. They cast doubt on somebody's innocence, on somebody's motives. They cast doubt on that, and so therefore that person is then compromised, and what they're saying, people are then programmed to be sceptical towards that person. Well, you know, she might be a paedophile for all we know. I mean, if they had any evidence that I was a paedophile, I'm sure it would have been online by now. Okay. And it is very hurtful for people who have survived sexual abuse and lived compassionately and strive to help people and help children especially, to then be accused of being a paedophile by people who are denying children's right to justice. And especially when that is in a climate where we've got all these historical cases coming forward, and where children, when, you know, these adults when they were children had reported the crimes but were shut up, were ignored. And then we see somebody like Jimmy Savile, because all these children were ignored, because arrest criteria, because, you know, no evidence, lack of evidence, no investigation. So then Jimmy Savile goes on to receive a knighthood, and, you know, has what you would call really a state burial almost, with thousands and thousands of people lying in the streets to give honour to him, as his coffin passed, you know. And it is, when you look back at that, it is so disgusting. It is so disgusting. And, you know, just have a look at some of the images, you know. Savile funeral. Sorry about the noise this keyboard makes. It's a mechanical keyboard, and I do only touch it lightly, but it really does. You know, this was Jimmy Savile's funeral. Just look at that. Just look at that. All these people out to pay their respects to this man. Look, there he is, supporting the NSPCC. Who would have believed it? But you've got to believe it, Britain. We do need to believe it now. The power of the media. The power of it. And how it influences people's minds. How a man like Jimmy Savile got into everybody's mind so much that he brought them all out onto the street. All out. Thousands of them. To pay their respects to Jimmy Savile. You know, a serial child abuser. Possibly a child murderer as well. Or he helped procure children from the Jersey Children's Home who were murdered. Now we strongly suspect. You know, look at this. All these people at Jimmy Savile's funeral. And yet, when we see the lack of justice given to the children in the Hampstead case and countless others, you know, there's Holly Gregg. And, you know, and again, that case now involves a murder as well of a witness. And I do urge people to look into Holly Gregg. And yet we haven't seen this many people out on the streets, have we? We haven't seen... We've got all these people out for a dead paedophile. But where are the people on behalf of the living children, the victim witnesses? Where are the people standing up for their rights to justice? And for all the countless trafficked babies that are being brought into Britain, thousands of them every year, to be abused and even murdered? But there's nobody there. And part of the reason why is because of all these shills. Shills everywhere. Everywhere. You know, this isn't a theory. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a conspiracy fact. Everything from selling games to promoting a particular political viewpoint. There you go, read it. You know, this is the kind of things that they do. Just scroll up on here, actually. New kind of how covert agents infiltrate the internet to manipulate, deceive and destroy reputations. Now, recently, they also use passive aggression as well by ignoring certain issues. And, you know, I have literally just cut off and blocked a lot of people online who I really believed in and trusted, but they have consistently refused to support cases like the Hampstead case or Holly Gregg, where people, you know, where there is lawful suspicion and absolute blatant denial of justice to children. You know, instead of EU child protection directives, Britain's High Court delivers an abomination of justice. And that, apparently, we can all ignore it. And, you know, I have criticised the Richie Allen show because, like I say, he's happy to talk about the horrors of child abuse, but he's not happy to talk about the solution, child protection directives. If he does, hats off to him. Maybe I was wrong about him. I am prepared to be wrong, but I will state my suspicions when I'm being consistently ignored by people who I have consistently supported. And I know that my arguments are valid, my debate is valid, it's intelligent, it's bright, it's informed, but I can be ignored, and it does have an accumulative effect when you're working and putting in as much effort as I do to try and be a counterbalance, to be a balance in the, because we are needed, people like me. There's not just me, there's lots of people who are doing exactly the same thing I'm doing from our own volition. We're not promoting any particular politician. Everybody knows I don't support the politicians, but we are just simply trying to share the facts and to show the most reasonable perspective, because an intelligence needs to be reasonable. Okay, if we're not living by reason, then what are we living by? Motive and intent to commit crimes, to support criminals. And that's exactly what these shills are there for, to provide motive, to justify motive and intent as a positive thing, you see, or to hide motive and intent. And I think when I looked at the Trump inauguration images, and I remember Trump and his team were, you know, very, very strongly complaining about the media coverage of it, saying they made it look like nobody was there. And I did start to think maybe they protested too much. And I do understand human psychology, and I do understand how criminals operate, and they are very paranoid because they know they're guilty, and they are paranoid of being exposed. And so why were they so concerned about the very small inauguration crowd, really, at Donald Trump's swearing in speech, you know, to be president? And obviously, because was the election rigged? How many people were denied their right to vote in states that were not strongly pro-Trump? You see, how many of the people online supporting Trump and promoting him and saying how wonderful he is, how many of them were actually shills? And maybe the whole propaganda campaign is reflected in the low attendance at Trump's inauguration, because if you compare the amount of online support the man had, and really strong support, you know, people who were prepared to really speak out and really slander and trash anybody that spoke against him, you know, call them government shills and blah blah blah. In contrast, it is amazing that so few people turned up. You'd have thought that they'd have been having difficulty getting them in, according to the online support of Trump. But when you look at the reality compared to the internet fiction that was upheld by trolls and shills, and people who are then persuaded by these people, because somebody only has to make a slight little comment leaning in support of Trump, even though they, oh well, I'm not sure, but you just say, oh, suddenly they'll have loads of friends who are then feeding their egos flattery, oh, supporting their posts, and people suddenly get all this attention and support. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, and it would be interesting if anybody comes forward who has been a victim of that, whereas they've been promoted, you know, they voiced a little bit of support for somebody like Trump, and then all of a sudden they've had loads of friends, and then now he's elected, oh, suddenly all these friends have disappeared, and there's no, you know, they're not liking their posts anymore, they're not sharing their posts. And the same probably with Brexit. Once Brexit has happened, then yeah, they'll all go away. So these are just a few, and this is from The Independent. These are just a few of the people that are, see, 13.5 million from Mercer. And this was all about, and here we go, Nigel Farage. You see, I showed you that piece here about, this was from 2013, and they were saying, beware of the EU supporter trolls, shills, who are going to be paid to troll the internet, okay? And then we find that, no, actually, former UKIP leader Nigel Farage is a friend of the Mercers, and that he actually received help from them. Okay. And you know, this is very, very serious, because Britain has now left Brexit. We're under rule of a government that has decided to scrap our human rights and give us this Bill of Rights that nobody even knows what it's about, and nobody's even voted for it. Okay? And we knew that there was no way they could do that and remain in the EU, because any country that's part of the EU has to uphold human rights, and if they don't, they can't be part of the EU. It's a foundation of membership. So I knew right from the start that this whole thing about the Tories like supporting us to stay in was just they were just playing devil's advocate to manipulate people. And this heinous character, you know, who likes hunting foxes, you know, that's his pleasure, watching foxes getting ripped apart by hounds. Okay, the most disgusting thing that came out in the news, and people were saying, oh, it's false, he didn't do that. Yes, he did. He went to the German embassy the day after Brexit and was there in line filing for German citizenship, because he's married to a German, so he could assure his place in the EU. This is the kind of people you're dealing with. Absolute total hypocrites, because they're really selfish. And the shill is more working for the far right than they are the so-called left. Because when it comes right down to it, the core of leftism, inverted commas, is actually just humanism. It's just people wanting their rights, wanting to live lawfully, wanting a fairer society, you know, and that's all been termed the left, which is then lumped in with extremist forms of socialism like Soviet communism and Korean form of communism, you see. And so then people are persuaded to believe, well, if you're on the human side, you're actually on the left. No, forget. We both have a left and right. The right is not this idea that you can cut out compassion and just judge loads of people as useless and worthless and not give them any healthcare or education and just use them like slaves. You know, we're persuaded to believe that this is a political choice when it isn't. It is just a crime. So forget the establishment's version of left and right. Just get with human and intelligence and law, and turn to the law to find out what is right. Because, you know, we can't, the left and right aren't, we're not supposed to be at war with, our left hand is not supposed to be at war with our right hand, is it? Because it's stupid. And we witness the same division, you know, between like male and female, where, oh, we're supposed to be at war with each other. No, we're supposed to cooperate. And this idea that the universe survives on, you know, warring, opposing entities. No, the opposing forces interact. That's what the yin and yang explains to us. The yin yang. It explains that, yes, the darkness is opposite to the light, but the darkness holds a perfect conception, understanding of the light, and the light holds a perfect conception, understanding of the darkness. and together they work cooperatively, in harmony, in unity. There's no war. And this perspective of how life actually is what has been imposed on the whole of humanity, and right down to the idea that we can have this battle between our left and right hands. And it is very scary, you know. It is very scary. It's incredibly dangerous. With this, a computer can actually do psychology. It can predict and potentially control human behaviour. It's what the Scientologists try to do, but much more powerful. It's how you brainwash someone. It is no exaggeration to say that minds can be changed, behaviour can be predicted and controlled. I find it incredibly scary, I really do, because nobody has really followed through on the possible consequences of all this. People don't know what's happening to them. Their attitudes are being changed behind their backs. And it is a very, very, very serious thing. And, you know, maybe now people ought to be really picking up. Look at the people online, on your Facebook friends, your Twitter friends. See who's being ignored. See who's being persecuted. Maybe those are the people you should be listening to. Look at the unpopular people. Okay? Look to the unpopular people. Some people, yes, it's right that they're unpopular, because they are promoting like ridiculous things. But the point is that these shills are there to make the ridiculous, the downright evil and dangerous appear popular, you see. And it does mess with people's minds. And then you've got governments having to do counter shills to deal with the shills. And so these are just a few of the posts on shills. Alliance plot to hijack BBC with fake callers. Okay. You know. How Reddit got huge, tons of fake accounts. There's a video there. You know, I'll leave you some of these links. And then we've got this one. You know, Secret of Gender, a Facebook quiz. Even using these, look, is reportedly backed by Robert Mercer. Okay. Cambridge Analytica worked on the Leave side of Brexit campaign. Okay, exactly what the shills were saying, and that's what they do. They state the opposition are going to do this, but actually they have done it themselves. And I think a lot of people who voted Brexit now do realise they were lied to. Okay, they were lied to, they were manipulated. And now they've been dumped, and now they've got to face the consequences. There you go, Reddit is being manipulated.
Last month we revealed how easy it is to place fake stories onto Reddit and get them to the top of influential subreddits with bought up votes and fake accounts. If you haven't watched that video yet, then check out the link below before you carry on. Today we can reveal how widespread the problem of gaming Reddit truly is. Gaming Reddit system, otherwise known as shilling, is pretending to be a real Redditor, but actually acting on behalf of a company that's trying to promote itself. You
see, that's it. They're using it for everything, to sell us everything from games to lifestyles. The rise of the weaponised artificial intelligence propaganda machine. There's a new automated propaganda machine driving global politics. And, you know, that there are robots, but, you know, that's why now a lot of sites you'll see a thing saying, I am not a robot. it became clear to Scout that this phenomenon was about much more than just a few fake news stories. It was a piece of a much bigger and darker puzzle, a weaponised AI propaganda machine being used to manipulate our opinions and behaviour to advance specific political agendas. And, you know, recently I've picked up on the CO2 scam, where people are being, you know, encouraged to believe that human produced CO2 is a serious threat to the environment, when actually the methane caused by the huge amount of animal farming that's going on in the world right now, because the more people there are, that, and especially people who are eating meat and drinking milk, the more animals farming there's going to be, and how the animal farming itself is destroying wildlife. Because while there's more and more cattle and sheep and pigs being born to live horrible, terrible lives and cruelly murdered in order to feed us and actually make us ill, okay, in order for that to happen, then we're going to lose 2/3 of our wildlife by 2020. 2/3. And we're just supposed to ignore that. And you notice that there's no, where is this army of people online expressing concerns about that, you see? Now, if I had like 3 million people liking my videos, people, anybody online, normal, ordinary people looking at one of my videos would think, yeah, wow, this lady's really saying something. But when they look at my video and see no likes and 15 dislikes, then they think, yeah, she's actually a load of rubbish. You see what I mean? Because it does influence people's minds. Sorry, I'm just going to pause for a minute. Sorry, phone calls. So here we go. That it's just, you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful. Please be aware of how your mind is being manipulated. Please try, you know, to see through the topics, you know, the strawman technique that will distract from the true meaning, what should really be understood from something, you know. And even somebody like David Packman here, naturally he's saying, yeah, well, of course this isn't true, this story of Noah, it just couldn't possibly happen, I don't accept that it happened. But that isn't the point, you see. And we do, even people like David Packman do get distracted into arguing one thing against another without understanding that, look, of course the story has been embellished over time, but there is still, the reason why that story is still with us is because it contains an important information about ourselves. And like I say, it explains our prime service, our prime purpose on earth, to serve life. That's why we can think, that's why we can be aware, that's why we can be forewarned, that's why we can understand that, oh, certain things are happening here, it means that this volcano is going to erupt, so we better move from here and move all the creatures from here now, okay, before it happens. But often the creatures know before us about natural events, but then there's man-made events. So if we know that somewhere's going to be bombed or whatever, we know to flee, and invariably we'll take our animals with us, because that's what life does. Life supports and protects each other. Life is cooperative, otherwise life could not survive. But according to men like him, no, life isn't there to be cooperative. Life actually is there to be absolutely controlled and manipulated in order to serve a chosen self-appointed few who consider themselves superior because they have no compassion, and they are actually intellectually stupid because they can't take everything into account. And that's why no matter what they do, They do destroy, and they will ultimately destroy themselves because they're stupid, and stupidity cannot survive in an intelligent universe. So, you know, again, I know it's a long video, and I do long videos, but what I'm sharing with you is important. And one day people will start realising who is the real, who is real in these internet media games. Aaron Banks, Brexit was a war, we won. Okay? The party bankrolled. Why were people pouring, why were rich people pouring money into Brexit? Because they know damn well that it's going to vote leave, vote leave. Did you see loads of EU badges saying vote EU? Yeah, there were a few, but the Brexit campaign, the online campaign, was very, very big. It was really big, and it's a very dangerous thing. And I think because of the information that we now have about how Brexit was popularised in Britain, I think that Britain really needs now to demand a revote. Okay, I think we should have another vote, because I think that the referendum, first of all, the public didn't really have much time to prepare or look at all the issues. The BBC did not explain to people the full facts of what leaving the EU could mean. And now we find that basically everything's going to be the same, probably, and except that we just won't be having our rights. And, you know, Britain's extremist bloggers helping the alt-right go global. And this is what's going on. And now we're witnessing it in France, in Italy, the rise of the alternative right. They feed on people's fears. They give disinformation. You know, it is really, really terrible. It's really terrible. And we do need to wake up to it. And, you know, as I say, all these people, this is the power of the media. This is the power of the media. This represents the power of an ignorant police force and an ignorant establishment who turn a blind eye to abuse of children. This is it. That's their power. And their podium, their chosen celebrity who's there to, you know, out in the public, always working for charity. And, you know, a lot of these charities now have been found as scams. They're actually covers for trafficking children. You know, child trafficking charities used as a cover for actually trafficking children. People with connections to charities abroad, the UN clearly states. And that is how you can be manipulated by somebody like Jimmy Savile, who'll stand there, you know, give him a show on TV, just like Donald Trump got a show on TV. Yeah, there's a few stories floating out around him about there, but we can just ignore those. Jim fixed it for me. You know, woo, put a cigar in his mouth. Oh, he's wonderful. Give him a knighthood. You know, there he is with his knighthood. Well done, Mr. Jimmy Savile, for your services for abusing and murdering the most vulnerable children. Okay? And it's like people have forgotten how brainwashed they are. This is brainwashing. You know, imagine how these people feel now, who were carrying Jimmy Savile's coffin. It's disgusting. Though my heart goes out to these people, especially who've been duped. It's, you know, I feel angry on their behalf, because I don't like to see good people being used to, you know, support and promote somebody that really they actually loathe? Or are we supposed to look at these people and think, well, did they know? Are these people all child abusers? You see what I mean? Because it makes everybody complicit when we are misled by the shills. And we all feel complicit then. We feel guilty. We feel stupid for being taken in. I mean, just look at all these people. Where were these people to demand justice for 2 children and countless trafficked babies and all the other special children in central London, not just in that children's schools? They talk about other schools as well that were involved. But the shill media then promote the story that it was all a lie and coached by the mother to deny access to the dad. That doesn't make sense. No, sorry, it does not make sense. Because the woman's not stupid. Okay? She's a professional lady. And, you know, there is just no way that I can believe that a professional, educated, vegan mum would, in order to stop the dad from seeing the children, allow her boyfriend of just a couple of months for she and him to coach the children, abusively coach them, in order to get them to, not just to talk about crimes their dad's supposed to have done, but involve all the local community, professional people, all the schools, all the children, and even to persuade her own children to say that they themselves took part in killing and eating babies and drinking babies' blood. What sane person would do that to their children? And, you know, there's no evidence, no professional report saying this woman suffers from severe mental health problems, but we do have professional reports that the father does suffer from severe mental health problems, and he did spend 2 years or 3 years by order of the local authorities getting therapy for his violence and aggression at Tavistock Clinic. You know, and that was even mentioned in Justice Porfley's summary, which she says we can just ignore that because all the injunctions against him and his apparently even right down to a professional diagnosis that this man suffers from severe mental health problems that lead to aggressive and violent behaviour. Apparently all of that, it has arisen from the mother maliciously accusing the father of doing things that he hasn't done, because apparently all the times the police went out to protect his ex-partner and her children, you know, apparently it was all hoax calls. Apparently the county courts were you know, convinced by lies from the mother. Apparently the professionals were convinced by lies from the mother, because that's how powerful apparently a mother of 2 children is. She can convince the entire establishment and to believe lies about her partner, and she can actually persuade her 2 children to tell absolute packs of lies consistently. And so, you know, this is why Britain, and that's why I'm making my videos. They are a cry aloud, really, for how serious things are, Britain, how serious it will be when you've got no NHS, when you're over 60 and they're saying, oh, well, I'm sorry, you're not really worth saving, we can give you compassionate care, we can't afford to treat your cancer. So, what, your life is only till 60? This, you know, they're cutting your education, they're going to deny you human rights. How can we do it? You know, how can we do it? So please, 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 Britain, please, I know that you people are good people. I know that you would not knowingly come out on the streets in support of this horrible character that we now know he is. And we're still living by the policies of one of his biggest supporters. Please wake up, Britain. Please get out on the street. You know, as I say, do in Iceland. Get your pots and pans. Bang your pots and pans. We don't want riots. We don't want... It's lawful action. We are lawfully entitled to protest against tyrants and tyranny and disinformation and evil, because it's pure evil. Not that evil can be pure, but that is what we're dealing with. So thank you very much for taking time to listen. As I say, have a look through my other videos, and you know, there's a lot of people like me who are just honest people, honestly sharing our souls, you know, our thoughts, our understanding, for no other reason than we are like the people, like Noah. Okay, we are forewarned, informed, and now we're trying to get people to be prepared, okay, for what's coming. On every level, you'll see that my videos cover every issue, every topic. Some of them I'm really angry and, you know, using so-called offensive language, which I think when you're talking about offensive, disgusting things, expect to hear some so-called abusive language, because that language describes what is going on. And the fact that good people and people who don't normally go around effing and blinding are reduced to that, it is itself evidence of how serious things are and how seriously intelligent people are being affected. And we are losing a lot of intelligent people, are committing suicides and self-harming because of the ignorance, because they can't get any support, because this army of shills is out there. And it is a form of passive aggression to ignore people's valid intelligence. That is a crime, to ignore valid reason and valid intelligence in favour of upholding and promoting absolute, you know, lies. They told lies. He lied to the British public about how much money the NHS was going to get on Brexit, and now the NHS is in an even worse situation than it was before Brexit. So please wake up. Please, Britain, wake